Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Woo! So today I'm at this park and I'll be talking about UK and Japan, comparing the differences between Japan and the UK, and also giving some updates since I moved here. It's been a month and so, and I got a few questions after my update video. If it's your first time to my channel, welcome. I do interviews with people with multicultural background, going deep into their identity roots, talking about our experiences being ethnically different to the country they grew up in. If you love that kind of stuff, please subscribe to my channel. Let's get into it. Let's go! I got a question about how people react to my American accent, and honestly nobody has ever pointed out my accent so far. If I mention it first, saying it like, oh yeah, I actually have an American accent, blah blah blah, and then they will be like, oh yeah, I've noticed, how do you have an American accent, blah blah blah, and I explain my life history and they're like, oh yeah, okay, makes sense. It's very interesting because even in Japan, even though I don't have an accent in Japanese, because how I look, they know I'm not from Japan. But even in the UK, people know that I'm not from the UK. So it's very, very much interesting because I think if I moved to the States, people would just assume I'm from the States, I guess. I don't know. I want to talk about the first thing I noticed when I came here is that how people will just come up and talk to you. And there's not much of that big wall between one person and another, because in Japan we don't really talk to strangers that often. If you're very much in need of help, you will go up to somebody and be like, sumimasen, I have a question, blah blah blah. But here in the UK, people will just go up to people and just start talking. And so I do love that sense of freedom of just going up to somebody and just asking a question or just chatting up, and people will answer and people will be happy to talk to you. And maybe I'm just generalizing this, but people do say people in London are very much self-involved and closed off, but I really want people to go to Tokyo and see it for themselves how much people in Tokyo are closed off. I mean, Londoners are self-involved. They pretty much keep everything to themselves, but in Tokyo, it's worse. But I mean, if you go up to somebody and ask a question, they will be happy to answer. But I'm just gonna be honest, but I think in Japan, people are not trained to be that social. It's just not in the culture where you just do small talks in Japan, and Brits are amazing at small talks. Even if they don't mean it, they're like, oh, lovely, nice, ooh, ah, ooh, nee, ooh, ee. They know what to say. And it's pretty similar in Japan, but it's less. I do love that aspect of the UK. But the flip side of that is that I feel like people will invade your personal space more so than Japan, because of that wall not being there. I mean, there is, but compared to Japan, there is a thinner wall between people. Another thing I noticed is how casual things are. There's not much depth in anything, I guess. In Japan, every action, everything seems to have a depth and a meaning to it. But here it seems lighter. It seems more like it's like a wind. Yeah, there was this, whatever, move on. But in Japan, because they take so much time to do things, even going into Starbucks, you can tell in Japan, there's depth, there's meaning, there's heart in it. But in the UK, it's just it's a cafe, there's no more to that. Whatever, you get coffee. It kind of feels like that. I do miss that aspect of Japan. I do. I'm not gonna lie. That is true. But at the same time, when you're on the other side of being the one providing that, it's gonna be stressful. working in Japan is so stressful. The standard is so high because at this Starbucks in London the other day, like the worker, I could see his undies like this wide. Like it was like, dude, everybody can see your undie, but nobody cares. I mean, they should, but it's not much of a big deal, I guess. But if a Starbucks worker in Japan was like that, the manager would come up to him right away and be like, we can see your pants. You might want to pull up your trousers, you know? So it's good to be on the receiving end, but when you're on the giving end, Japan is stressful, you know? But when you're on the receiving end in the UK, you don't get much of a quality, I think. So that's a very big difference, I think. Somebody also asked what my professional goal will be after this, since I was an actor model for like more or less past 10 years. I do want to pursue this identity thing on YouTube, as well as documenting my life. And I'm pretty much enjoying that as well. But I do want to get into the entertainment business a little bit, maybe in the UK if I can. But at the same time, I do want to become a therapist, psychologist. I love reading psychology books. I love psychology. And I noticed that I'm always being a therapist to everybody. So I do want to study that and get qualified to become a therapist or a psychologist eventually. Somebody also asked about the dating scene here, and I feel like in general in Japan it's more constructed and it's less of a casual thing. But here I feel like it's super casual. It's just like, let's meet up, blah blah blah. And I think that's good and bad, because you don't really appreciate the other person when things get too casual. Another thing I noticed is how many people watch anime now in the UK, because I was speaking Japanese to my Japanese friend at a bar, and the bartender was like, "Oh, are you speaking Japanese? Why do you speak Japanese?" And I was like, "Oh, I grew up in Japan." And he was like, "Oh, I watch anime." And I was like, "Okay." Did not expect that, because he didn't seem of a person to be watching anime, but as you can tell, never judged a book by its cover, you know? Like, I should never judge. So I feel like more people are watching anime than before. As I said before about Starbucks, I don't really expect quality when I'm in the UK. I shouldn't really say I shouldn't expect quality, but I feel like if you pay, you get quality, but if you don't get quality. But in Japan, you do get quality even if you don't pay much. So I think that's one of the biggest differences between the UK and Japan as well. Another thing I noticed about is how the accent changes depending on where you are, and it changes so fast. Because in Japan, most people speak standard TV Japanese, I think, mostly. There's like dialects and everything, and the older you get, the more you speak the dialect and everything. But young people, they usually have the same intonation, same accent and everything. They might throw in some like regional words, but it's mostly the same. But here, just the accent changes so much here that I just cannot keep up almost. And I try to assimilate almost. I try to sound like them, but I just cannot do that. And it's just so interesting because people say Japan's protecting their culture. Japan's really good at that, but they really fail to protect the regional accents. I think they really failed to preserve the regional accents, but the UK really succeeded in preserving the accents, the regional accents. So that, I'll give that to UK. Like, definitely, they really succeeded. And I think that's really good to keep the regional accent. And because it's beautiful. I love it. I enjoy it. I love it. I love accents and everything. But Japan, yeah, to be honest, Japan really failed on preserving accents. And one more thing I'm enjoying is the pub culture. There's a pub on every corner in London, and you can just go in, have a drink or anything, and it feels more welcoming than Japanese bars. In Japan, if you go into a bar, like you end up spending a lot. I mean, it depends on the person, but pub, you can just go in for a drink. It's more spacious, casual, and you kind of meet the people in the community, so that's really, really good. And you can tell what kind of people live around there, and it's like do you want to meet at the pub? Like, let's just catch up, like that kind of thing. Because I can't really think of a Japanese equivalent of a pub. So I do love the pub culture here, definitely. But one more thing I want to mention is how expensive it is to live in the UK. The rent, because for instance, I live 30 kilometers outside London, right? So thinking about that, if I wanted to rent a room in a shared house 30 kilometers outside of Tokyo, it wouldn't cost me more than 30,000 yen or 40,000 yen, including bills, which is like 250 pounds, I think. But in London, I'm paying almost 700 pounds, even if I'm like 30 kilometers outside of London. And it's bizarre. It's just, I don't know why the real estate price is so high here. Maybe it's just too cheap. In Japan, I don't know, but because even when I was in a shared house in downtown Tokyo, like really, really, really posh area in Tokyo, I was only paying 68,000 yen, which is like 500 pounds, 450, I think. So I think just living here in general costs a lot. So that is very, very surprising, to be honest. Like, I knew that from before, but I was just comparing, like, because I'm 30 kilometers outside of London, and I would not pay that price in Tokyo if I'm like 30 kilometers outside. Like, if you're paying 700 pounds in Tokyo, which is like 100,000 yen, you would get like 3 rooms, living room, all that in like suburbs of Tokyo. So, I mean, to be honest, my parents' house in suburban Tokyo, they pay less than me, and I only get a room in a shared house. So it's bizarre. it's so bizarre. I'm just enjoying just documenting my life, how it goes, how I feel, and just enjoying this beautiful weather. Quite chilly today, but not bad, is it? Not bad. So I hope you like this very chill update video, because I noticed that you guys seem to like my self-talk, because honestly I'm getting more views in the interviews, and makes me wonder what I should do. Like, I put so much time into the interviews, and I'm getting more views when I do like self-talk stuff. So please give me ideas of what I should do in the UK. I do have many ideas, but I just want you guys to tell me what you would like to watch. I'm not doing an apartment tour, unfortunately. I do have to share with other people, and I don't want them to get involved. And I don't really like showing my personal space, my room, my kitchen, and all that. So that won't be happening. Thank you for watching, and please, if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, please, and leave a comment. And if you want to buy me a coffee, I have set up a buy me coffee link. And yeah, hope you enjoy this episode, and thank you. Bye bye.